Good afternoon, evening. Very welcome. You're very welcome to Kellogg College. And also just like to say that we're hello to all our students. We've got apparently thousands of students joining us. It's being live streamed. And also if you want to watch the presentations back, there'll be a link on the website after today. So please do that. So we're all gathered here today and around the world to discuss a very topical issue, and that is Brexit. And so hopefully by the end of this afternoon, we'll at least have a little bit more insight as to what's going on in relation to Brexit. So we have two fantastic speakers and very insightful academics here to speak to you about this topic today. We have Professor Andrew Oswald, who's a Professor of Economics and Behavioural Sciences at Warwick University, and Andrew has published on a wide range of issues, including trade unions, labour contracts, happiness and mental health issues, home owning, and he's obviously also an expert in issues around Brexit. So Andrew's going to talk first for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll take some questions for about 5 minutes. And that will be followed by Professor Danny Dorling. Welcome, Danny, to Kellogg as well. Danny is a Halford Mackinder Professor of Geography here in Oxford at the School of Geography and Environment. And Danny has published an astonishing number of absolutely fantastic books on issues around inequality and basically unfairness in contemporary society. And again, Danny's also going to speak for about 10 or 15 minutes, followed by questions. And then we'll have quite a bit of time to open it up to the floor. So if you've got questions for both of them, or if you've got comments to make about cross-cutting both presentations, then please do. So I'm going to hand over now to Andrew. Thank you.
Good evening. How nice of you to come. We're going to talk about Brexit. You'll be surprised to learn. And I haven't presented this work before. It's really a kind of large-scale statistical analysis. We're trying to get to the bottom with these colleagues. I'll give their names more fully at the end. We're trying to get to the bottom of what caused Brexit. I'm sure many of you have thought about this topic. One could look at the newspapers that came out just before, some of these widely read newspapers that came out just before, and think that somehow those newspapers themselves played a causal role in stirring up a particular form of the Brexit vote. I'm not going to pursue that. I'm going to think of these newspapers as a conduit, one might say, as reflecting a genuine kind of feeling within the country. Perhaps you can see some of these words, greedy elites and so on, but I'm not going to pursue that per se. In case you think, and I have some friends and colleagues who do believe this, that somehow Britain has learned to regret its decision. There are some people in Britain who think that somehow people have changed their mind. Then you might be interested in the latest YouGov data. I see I've lost my formatting very slightly on my flash drive, but it doesn't matter too much. You can see the question. This is people think it was right or wrong after the June 2016 decision. You see it's very evenly balanced in 2016. And remains essentially exactly the same level of lack of clear majority now. So this remains a very important and in principle divisive issue, of course, within our country. And my own view is that an analysis of Brexit, although it matters in my judgment tremendously in itself, may also tell us something about what's going on in a broader sense in Western society. There are overlaps with the Trump election and so on. Let's go through some ideas about what might have caused Brexit. We're going to put all these together, and I'm going to give you coefficients, you might say. Today I'm really a kind of statistician, but we want to weigh up the different influences. The average age in this room is fairly high, ladies and gentlemen. Was it all, I was about to say the fault of, was it all a result of older people voting for Brexit? Were the old in our country thumbing their nose, you might say, to the European Union, perhaps because of some hangover from the Second World War even, or the extended family's views about the Second World War. Of course, some other kinds of older individuals also favoured Brexit. You may like to know that Jonathan Meachie was a student at Behavioural College, Oxford, and this gentleman was also a student at Behavioural College, Oxford. And there are other kinds of non-university people who voted, were keen on Brexit. This is Mr. Henry Bolton with an aide here. Mr. Bolton was until very recently the boss of the head of the UKIP party. Now, this is a serious point of view, and right after the election, it was very commonly believed. Here, I've just given you a clip from The Independent, a man called Ben Chew. Why did we leave? Ben blamed, if that's the word, or of course he wasn't keen on it, but attributed it to a big age divide. And I think some of that continues today. So we're going to look at that statistically. Here's another idea. Perhaps the British are just anti-foreigners compared to some other, especially West Europeans. Not a very nice sentiment to believe in, but let's just consider that as a scientific possibility. This is a kind of representative extreme Brexit person, Mr. Farage, I suppose. Though he's not against all foreigners, this is him with a well-known international hotelier. Here's hypothesis 3. Perhaps Brits felt financially hard up and they perhaps lashed out against the status quo, and one representative, you might say, of the status quo was the European Union. There's some really very interesting statistical evidence, I think, consistent with common sense, that when people are unhappy and you give them a chance to do any kind of vote against the status quo, that unhappiness appears to have a causal role in, we might say, encouraging a vote against whatever is the established view. And some of my colleagues have, in the Journal of Public Economics, just published, I think, the best causal proof of that. And to cut a long story short, they looked in particular at unhappiness caused by the death of a spouse in middle age. Now, if your spouse dies in an incredibly unpleasant event in middle age, then that's essentially astonishingly bad luck. But viewed as a kind of rather bleak, admittedly natural experiment, they showed that those who lose their spouses tend in the next time they're asked about their political views to have switched towards rejecting whoever is in power.